Welcome to Zoom O'Clock with your host, Tessy Antony de Nassau. This podcast brings you enlightening discussions with leading experts and public figures directly to your ears.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zoom O'Clock with Tessy Antony de Nassau. It's the 1st of March. Isn't that exciting? Today is Zero Discrimination Day, and it's the month of the woman with International Women's Day and many other amazing celebrations. To start the month off, I have two wonderful and inspiring guests, which are doing fantastic work. I have Mr. Galahad, which is the mastermind of Vivobarefoot. Then I have my dear friend Dulma, Miss Dulma Clark, who is the impact cheerleader and head of the foundation of Vivobarefoot. It is really a pleasure to be with you guys.
Happy to be here.
Hi.
Happy 1st of March.
Happy 1st of March. 1st of March. What an amazing time. And yeah, sadly, almost happy first anniversary Corona, right? Crazy, time flies.
Funny you said International Women's Day, because March the 8th is when we're getting let out of lockdown, and it's also International Women's Day, and it's also my daughter's birthday. So we're going to be celebrating a lot in 1 week from now here.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, as it happens, I will be in London on that day. So who knows? Maybe we get to see each other properly. Yeah, I'm going to be there until the 14th. So let's hope for a physical meeting then. And already happy birthday to your daughter. What a beautiful date she has to celebrate her birthday as a woman. Beautiful. So today we are here to talk about you guys and your amazing work. The world is under lockdown. There's still so much happening, a lot of uncertainty, but there is so much amazing stuff happening, a lot of positivity, a lot of fantastic new projects, really things that make this world a better place. And you guys are part of this. You're in the middle of it. So if I can start with you, Mr. Galahad, can you tell me about Vivobarefoot? What is it? How did you come up with the idea? And what are the key facts we need to know?
Well, I mean, funny enough, the definition of a hypocrite is the shoemaker that goes around with no shoes on. And as you can hear from Vivobarefoot, which literally means live barefoot, we're a shoe company that promotes barefoot. I come from a long line of shoemakers. For my family have been making shoes for more than 200 years ago. And I'm now a little bit the black sheep of the family and a terrible hypocrite going around telling the world that shoes are bad for you. So Vivobarefoot launched as a standalone brand in 2012. And we've been on an exciting journey ever since, basically trying to make as little shoe as possible. We were very inspired by a guy called John Ehrenfeld, who wrote a book called Sustainability. And he said, his definition of sustainability was that all life should be able to flourish on Earth. And the only excuse for filling the world up with more stuff was that products should help us feel more human and or help us connect more with nature and or ask important environmental or ethical questions. And I was making quite a lot of different shoes when I was reading that book, but I realized that the only shoes that really lived up to that were barefoot shoes that really allow you literally to connect more with nature. They literally feel the ground and connect to the ground, allows your body to work in its natural potential. And, through the way we make them and the way the whole shoe industry is, ask some important questions as well. So we've been dedicated to that mission now for nearly 10 years, 9 years.
Wow, that's incredible. So tell me a bit about the shoe itself. You say to create as little shoe as possible. What do you mean with that? And how do you give the experience of the person wearing the shoe? I assume it's made with the most sustainable material, organic, and everything that needs to be there, but still wearing a shoe. And also, could you wear these shoes in a city life, or are they more made for nature? Just tell us a little bit more about the product itself, because I'm super curious. I know that my ex-husband was a huge fan of walking barefoot, and has had these very special shoes where his toes were inside as well. And you could feel more the ground, but still be protected in case of cuts and stuff. So tell us a little bit more about the product and what your major feedback was so far.
Yeah, look, well, so it all starts with the foot, and humans don't have hooves or pads. So shoes were, when we started walking around on 2 feet in the plains of Africa and the savannah, probably one of the first tools that humans ever invented would have been simple sandals made out of eland skin. And, back in those days, they were persistence hunting in groups, and they'd run for 8 hours a day, kind of, across the hot plains of Africa, hunting down deer and things like that. So shoes are a tool, essentially. And ever since then, humans have made lots of different tools, tools as shoes to leave Africa, cross the mountains, cross the deserts, go up into the Arctic. And, we're lucky to work with a lot of indigenous shoemakers, and through Dulma's work, we support different indigenous cobblers around the world, from the Kalahari Bushmen that made the original shoes all the way up to Sami reindeer herders who make their shoes out of reindeer skin. And all those indigenous shoemaking for tens of thousands of years were always perfect barefoot shoes, just enough protection from the heat or the cold or the thorns, and puncture protection for the feet. And that's the way shoes were made for thousands of generations. And it was only until recently that we started inventing heeled shoes, mainly for horse riding at first. And then it became a fashion and a status symbol. And then, of course, in the 20th century, we invented lots and lots of technology to sit under the foot, to do, all kinds of wonderful things. And a bit like all the other sort of artificial things to try and beat nature in the 20th century, we're now learning in the 21st century that a lot of those things just didn't work, and actually made the problem worse, not only for our own health, but also the health of the planet. So it all starts with the foot, and the foot is an amazing bit of kit that, literally developed over 2 million years of evolution. Mm-hmm. Most importantly, the big toe, and we call the big toe the great toe. And the great toe is designed as the body's pivot and anchor. But if you think about it, most modern shoes takes the big toe and shoves it up against the other toes and shoves it up in the air, like with the toe spring. Mm-hmm. So it kind of renders the big toe completely redundant, so you can't use it. And if you don't use the big toe correctly, then the rest of the foot doesn't work, and actually you suffer problems all the way up the body. The next thing about the foot is you've got hundreds of muscles and tendons in the feet. So they're designed to be used. And when you use the foot naturally, those muscles and tendons are in full action. But as soon as you start supporting it or squashing the foot in any way, then you stop using all those muscles and tendons, and the foot gets weak. And we've seen more and more research now that just by walking around in barefoot shoes for 6 months, your feet get 60% stronger. But the point is not that wearing barefoot shoes makes your feet strong. The point is that just walking around in normal shoes makes your feet weak, because you're not using all these muscles and tendons in your feet. And the last thing, probably the most important thing, is your feet, like your hands, are packed with nerve endings. They're designed to feel. And the part of your brain that gets information from your feet is the same size as the part of your brain that gets information from your hands. So walking around in padded shoes in a concrete world, literally kind of cutting off that vital interaction between the feet and the brain. And they link that sort of lack of information from the feet to the brain with brain degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, because we're designed to move. So much of our brain is dedicated to movement. And so much of our brain is dedicated to feeling the ground under our feet when we move. And if you cut it all off with big padded shoes or heels, you literally lose that vitality, and your whole sort of system works less well. You know, and a little bit of you dies inside, basically. So we're trying to revitalize the easiest way to revitalize the human body is just by moving around with less shoe on.
Wow, that's fascinating. I definitely need to get a pair of that for my partner, because he always complains about pain in his Achilles. So he is by the door. He's like, no, because and we don't know what it is. He has these pads in it and everything when we go for runs, but definitely that sounds like a good solution for him. But going back just to when you said there's an evolution, right? Before we go to Dulma with the foundation, because I want to ask some questions about it as well. I'm pregnant and I have 2 wonderful teenage sons, and I raise them in the best way possible. But my children were always wearing shoes. Now with my third one, as we're all going back a bit to nature, mindfulness, also with the Corona pandemic, we have just been a little bit more inwards and getting to know our bodies a little bit more and being more in tune with ourselves. I want to see with the baby now what I can do better. My sons are great and they're doing really well, but there's new things and trying new things out. So I'm wondering, for babies, also for children who start to learn to walk, what do you think about wearing shoes and barefoot? Your brand, do you have something for little new starters, new runners, when they're so small? And what was your feedback if you do?
Yeah, so look, the interesting thing is that the human foot is the baby's foot. Congratulations, by the way, on
thank you.
raising 2 big boys and another one coming. But the human foot, when it's born, is mostly cartilage. So the bones in a child's foot, they're not fully formed until the teenage years. So for the first more than 12 years of life, the foot is still extremely plastic and easily deformable. So anything that gets in the way of the sorry, there's a bit of background noise. Anything that gets in the way of a naturally growing foot necessarily deforms it and necessarily puts it out of shape, because the foot is so plastic. So the best thing you can do for a child's foot is to allow it to grow, to develop naturally, so as little interference as possible. Even in babies, they've shown that the baby grows, just even the onesies. If they're too tight and the baby's foot is kind of jammed in the bottom, that already starts to deform the toes and the natural development of the foot. And the foot is growing very, very fast, like, on a daily basis. And so if it's in too small baby grows, then even that can sort of have a Chinese foot binding effect on the baby's foot. So you want to let the foot be as natural as possible for as long as possible. And the truth is, in the shoe industry, the very first toddler shoes are pretty good. They're generally pretty soft, wide, and quite foot-shaped. The key thing is to keep replacing them, because the foot is literally changing a size every few months. Sorry, Fee. Sorry, a bit of... so the most important thing is just to make sure they're always wearing the right size. But then in the modern shoe industry, what happens is kids go to school at about 4 or 5 years old, and then shoes really start to not look like feet. They start to get padding, they start to have little heels, they start to get quite tight.
Boarding shoes, the shoes for boarding school, these black,
even
shoes,
Nike and Adidas are just not foot shaped. And so, and then the child is, they're sitting down most of the day, but then when they are running around, they're running around in shoes that are literally deforming and weakening their feet. So, it's fairly widely acknowledged now in the scientific community that most kids in the Western world enter adulthood with weak, deformed feet. almost entirely because of the shoe industry. And it's, in my opinion, a massive public health scandal on the same level as if we were giving children cigarettes in the playgrounds. Because we are literally deforming, allowing bad movement habits to occur. And as a result, a lot of young people in the modern world, they don't like moving anymore. They don't like running. They don't like sport anymore. They get injured a lot when they do play sport. So allow a child's foot to be as natural as possible, as little shoe as possible. And most importantly, make sure they fit well and there's plenty of space for the toes to splay and contract.
Mm-hmm. Wow, really interesting. And yes, it makes sense. I knew there was something like that that plays on. But, with both my sons are in boarding school, and these shoes are just awful. They're really not made for them. And my sons really dislike them as well. They hurt them, and they're adult shoes, right?
Yeah,
and maybe we find a solution for that, to create boarding shoes where the sons can, and the girls can wear with their uniforms, some shoes that are also good for them. I think that would be great to develop that with the schools and just put some focus on that, instead of only having campaigns for good food, right? As you say, and all of these other fantastic and timely conversations, of course, but also to add that to the conversation, because you never hear about that. And the shoes are really, really not good, and they really, really, really don't like them. Yeah. So going over, yes,
unhappy hips, unhappy back, unhappy knees, unhappy life. So feet are overlooked, and keep giving your children nice, wide, healthy, natural feet is a wonderful gift. And they might, the truth is they maybe get made fun of at school a little bit, but that's one of the big challenges we've got to overcome is actually celebrating what a strong, healthy foot looks like and what strong, healthy footwear looks like.
Yeah, as we have Zero Discrimination Days, break the stigma, right?
Yeah.
Emancipate the feet.
Exactly, because it's true, so many young adults already now have problems with their hips, their backs, their necks. Already they're sitting like that because they're on their phone all the time. But also with the shoes that they have. I don't have girls, but I know a lot of people who have girls, and some shoes they already wear when they're 12, 13. It hurts me. Just looking at them, I'm like, oh my gosh, you must be tired. And they're like, no, I love it. I'm like, really? Okay, great. But yeah, so definitely that conversation, we need to talk more about that. I would love to be more involved with it. And I'm sure people listening to this, especially parents and also teachers and and physicians, their ears are probably burning, like, yes, please. I want to be part of this movement. So we definitely need to have more conversations on that offline. Going over to the foundation, though, because we do run out of time, but let's make it a bit longer, because I really want to hear about the foundation, if you allow me. Because it's great to have a great product who does good to a lot of people who can afford it. But let's talk about what you do as well in developing countries with amazing people there, and with tribes as well, the original tribes, where actually we all kind of come from, and what you have learned from them, who are still living quite old ways. And, as they say, some people say they're the happiest people in the world, right? Because they have little things, but the things they have, they use them to the fullest, and they are just so happy and healthy, right? So tell me, Dulma, about the foundation. What has been your key breakthrough successes? Which are the most inspiring tribes you have been working with? And how can we help? How can we help the foundation and you to make this world a better place, one foot at a time?
Thank you, Tessy. So the program that I work on is called Livebarefoot. It's in-house impact fund to incubate and deploy programs around research, innovation, and action in barefoot living and regenerative shoemaking. So there are three key areas. From research perspective, we work with, right now, have 7 different university partners. We fill research gaps in biomechanics. So one of the research programs we want to deploy next year is connecting what's the effect of barefoot movement on autism. how in kids. Kids movement is one of the key areas that we focusing on. From regenerative shoemaking point of view, we want to bring to the world tangible examples of truly regenerative, full-on net positive products to the table. Right now, it doesn't really exist around the world, so we want to make sure we have full-on control around from transparency, from field to field, so to speak. And one of the trials we deployed this year is trialing first offshore kelp farming in southwest England, and then the same kelp can be used for, fingers crossed, for biopackaging and knitting. So that's one of the research areas that we're looking at. And from manufacturing perspective, also we worked with indigenous communities. That's kind of related back to the research, because it's obviously everything is interrelated at the end of the day. Because when in the modern society, as Galahad explained, we already deformed, the modern people deformed their feet. So we went back to indigenous communities to look in quest to find a really healthy feet and what is natural movement. And that led us to the deep into Kalahari Desert, and we've been working with the San community and end up opening social enterprise, making the original hunting sandals, very limited edition from locally sourced materials, and the system is exactly the same. We want to reorganize or recreate the original way of making, where everything has been made to measure, only at the right quantities people need, because right now the world produces 24 billion shoes every year for only 7 billion population. So like where this all goes. There was a research showing that because people's feet are so different, from this 24 billion of shoes, 40% of footwear doesn't already fit people automatically, because like we cannot standardize so many pairs of shoes. So out of so many, 40% probably already doesn't fit people, and plus majority of them end up in landfills anyway. So like this overconsumption thing comes into play. So then if we look back to the original, to the indigenous communities, the economy was like fully circular, all made to measure. So this is a program that we have that is looking how we can incorporate the more circular business model in our industry. And let's take as an example the kids business. The kids footwear grows like kids feet grow every 4 to 6 months. Can we come up with a rental / subscription model where parents don't have to buy, and then they always get like automatic upgrade and things are circular? So this type of developments are we working on from foundation point of view. But then there is a direct environmental programs where we've been in areas where we manufacture. One of the programs where how I started my journey in shoemaking was in Ethiopia, the cradle of humanity, very beautiful place. But then there was a massive overseas investments coming into the country, and we thought, is it possible? The question was, can we create full-on ethical, sustainable manufacturing only using locally sourced material, but from like a commercial manufacturing point of view, not like as a people would say like as a charitable organization or anything like that? Can we create a really ethical manufacturing? So that's 3 years later. Now we have over 100 people fully employed, making handmade footwear from locally sourced material. We're going to be trialing next year. Again, fingers crossed if everything goes well. First, regenerative wild hide trial, where incorporate regenerative agriculture principles in sourcing the materials, and then we sourcing locally grown cotton. So yeah, it's all happening, and it's very complex. A lot of different stakeholders and players, and yeah. But if we can just create examples that we can flag to the world that it is doable, that this industry can make things in a very truly valuable, regenerative way, then maybe more people can embrace it, and we can move the dial.
100%. You know, some people fight it, but rather fighting it, just join it, because the train is running, right? And definitely, as we have heard just before, you know, it's a matter of health. It's a matter of public health, and it's a matter of re-education. So I am totally on board. I'm sure a lot of people who will be listening to this are also totally on board. And we will definitely keep an eye on you. I will make sure that I put your website and the details, everything below the video, because we have run out of time now, big time. So I don't want to keep you too long. But before I leave you, very shortly, we are still in lockdown. And yes, we will be opening on the 8th of March in the UK a bit more. Here in Zurich, they opened 2 shops today on the 1st of March and so on. So we're slowly easing the regulations, but yet we're still living in times of lockdown and great uncertainty because we don't know. We had that last year too in June, and then we ended up being fully locked down again a few months later, right? How do you cope as people? You know, as an individual, what do you do to keep sane and keep moving forward? Wake up in the morning and be as positive as you can. Is there a book, a quote, or something you do that our listeners can inspire to maybe as well to use as a tool to overcome these feelings of anxiety in these uncertain times?
Well, you know, our brand is like the mission is to reconnect people with nature, inspire people to live life with less padding, you know, step outside your comfort zone, like rethink what comfort really is. And, you know, to that tune, like we all do as much as we can during lockdown, get out in nature. And the ultimate way, and I know you're in Zurich now, is go and jump in the lake. It's beautiful, cold water now. And that is, you know, there's a lot of research, this reconnection with nature, the cold water, you know, people like Wim Hof are promoting that. So, yeah, I would, on a personal level, I swam in a beautiful lake today. I swam in a beautiful river yesterday, and that keeps me alive and healthy and well. And they're normally in beautiful places. So go and find some cold water and jump in it.
Amazing.
My take on it would be to, my personal experience is to reconnect back to your spiritual self. I come from a very small indigenous community from Lake Baikal. I was raised as a Buddhist / pagan, and it was nice to kind of reconnect it back. Like I kind of forgot in this modern Western universe how beautiful it is to reconnect to to stars. And I started speaking to a Buddhist monk who lived in monastery for the past 30 years. That's been a beautiful experience.
That is beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing some of your personal experiences. Thank you for inspiring us all with your work and giving us more information about what you're doing and how we all can make a difference and what we should be paying more attention to. And yes, just imagine, without feet, what would we be, right? It's such an important part of us, and yet it becomes such a routine for us to think that they're just there, and their care can be overlooked sometimes. So I think it's a really important topic, and I certainly learned a lot. So thank you very much. We will speak offline more. And I definitely would love to get involved more. And I'm sure some people here were listening to this as well. So I make sure I put your website and details below this video on Apple Podcasts, all the other major podcast channels, and also on YouTube. So that for the people who are listening to this, they can also get in touch with you guys. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I wish you a beautiful 1st of March, rest of the day, of course. And we shall speak super soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are, one people standing on one earth, all connected with 2 feet. One love.
Thank you for listening to this Zoom O'Clock. We hope this discussion was insightful and has provoked some new ideas for you. Please share and subscribe. If you like to keep in touch with your host, you can find her on Instagram under Tessy_from_Luxembourg and on Twitter under Tessy_DE.